Welcome to the In My Opinion Show with Ronald B. Robinson and friends. Seen on the internet 24 hours, 7 days a week. I want to especially thank my wonderful co-hosts for their determination and their desire, to convey our messages, to the world. I also want to thank All Points TV and Davidson Talk Network for their assistance in our shows. I also want to thank Denise Smith-Allen and Miss Jackie Williams and Mr. Henry Hatter.
Thank you, Ron. And may I say thank you, Jackie, for the housewarming party. I met lots of new people, made new friends, and who were inspired by the show. Where'd you find these people?
It was nice. It was nice.
Yes, it was.
Let's talk about Pope Francis. Powerful message to the U.S. Congress, different faiths, and the world. Messages such as feed the hungry to the 1%, help others, stop discrimination, bigotry, stop the death penalty, women's health, forgive the women that have had abortions and welcome those that have strayed back into the Catholic Church. Stop pedophilia in the church. That means in all churches, not just the Catholic Church. I found this, in fact, I found new respect, I guess, if you will, for the Pope and for religion, okay? Because we got to think of others, than thyself. And I want to talk about his messages to the world. Denise, what's your thoughts?
Well, first off, I'd like to say that for a person who is, in my mind, a minister, although in the Catholic faith he is the Pope, and for some who are in the faith, I believe he is the closest thing to God. And for him to have made the journey and the pilgrimage to come to the United States and to make his way to various cities and certainly to speak to the Congress and, basically to the people. The message is of love. The message is of opening up our eyes to see the world other than our own selves, me and my four and no more. We're looking at trying to convey, what that whole idea of spirituality is all about. And I think for those who have an ear to hear and heard his message and believe, then things will change. Things will change for individuals. It may be slowly, but the idea is it's helpful. It's helpful. I wasn't necessarily inspired either way, myself personally, because I understand that's his role. That's what he is supposed to do. But I'm hopeful that what he said will resonate with people so that change will occur within themselves, because that's where it starts. Like I said, it's, people have gotten to be so selfish-minded and, so complacent about those things that are right there in their area of control. Because we cannot feed the world, but you certainly can look down the street or in another area of your community and see that there is a need. Mm-hmm. And as long as there is a need, and we already know the word has said, the poor will be with you always. This is not going to change. But what you can do is you can teach a man how to fish as opposed to keep feeding him fish. Mm-hmm. You can teach him so that he himself will be able to take care of himself. So with that, I'll end it there.
Well, I was impressed with him, because of his outreach, mm-hmm. all right? Mm-hmm. Not only to the U.S. Congress, okay, but he's the first pope that I've been aware of that rode in an open, open car. Mm-hmm. Okay, the first pope that I'm aware of that this ever came to the United States. Mm-hmm. Okay, and I was even more impressed, when he took the time out of his schedule, to help feed the hungry. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then the little kids that he embraced, and during his travels down, I guess probably Pennsylvania Avenue. Okay, in one situation was where, this little girl came out there, and I guess one of the guards or one of the people that were in his security, all right, was trying to push her back, and he said, "Oh, no, bring her to me." Okay, that was very, that was very heartwarming. Okay, and I just hope that people will remember, what he talked about, and especially the United Nations, where there was hundreds of different leaders and from around the world, and hopefully they'll take some of his message back to their countries and and implement them. Jackie, what's your thoughts?
The same sentiments as you guys have. I was encouraged because I noticed that it brought people together. And as you looked at the crowds, it was like no set race. It was just everybody was welcoming, and they wanted to hear something encouragement, because it seems as though the world is yearning to hear some good news. And I was also taken by the little girl that gave him the letter, and what the letter stated was, "I want to be able to play with my friends openly." And she had a picture of herself and the Pope, and she had all different color, races of kids, and I just thought that was big, because she was determined to get that to him, because her message was, "I want everybody to see my friends like I see them." And this is from a child, so it is some issues, like you said, in our own backyard that we can deal with. They're not like, where we need to cross the, go overseas. It's some stuff that we need to handle right here. So, our kids are telling us that, they want to be able to have the freedoms that we haven't allowed them to do. So we need to break down the racial walls and let them just be who they are. And we need to be able to help when we can help. If you have somebody within reach that is hungry, then you can do that without having to be on TV to be seen, but do it just because it's like the right thing to do, not without publicity.
Exactly. Those are my sentiments. Exactly. I couldn't have said them better, Jackie. I was very impressed with with this man. Henry, what is your thoughts?
Well, I think that each one of you have really articulated this real well, and looks like my remarks are going to converge on what you said. I was pleased that his remarks did not spark any racial, religious, or gender issues, anger, which we see so much in the presidential debates. We never get to other issues. Here's a man that talked about everything and anything in a way that people, including non-Catholics, could listen to.
That's right.
And be inspired by them. Normally in the past it was always, that's for Catholic people. But I understand in New York and everywhere he went, people just came to congregate and listen to his remarks. And they were people of different races, different beliefs, different religions, different, and all genders. And you heard nothing of the sentiments that we see on the TV debates. And that says a lot. And it used to be that the Pope always adopted the way, I won't say always, but it appeared as though they adopted the issues that were the major issues of the times. This person spoke basically from a religious point of view, not a secular one. He took over, as you said, Denise, the religious aspect, and he talked about what religion should be doing and faith should be doing. It should be bringing people together. It should be uniting people. It should be serving people, whether they need food, clothing, or shelter, whether they need support, or whether they just need anointing, because everybody wants that. And I think that everybody took it with grace and dignity. I heard nobody criticize the Pope. There may be people that do. There always are those. But I didn't hear it. And if I didn't hear much of it, then there couldn't have been much that anybody else heard. He was who we thought he was.
Well, I appreciate the fact that he left politics out of it.
Yeah.
too. Okay, and on the internet, I did see some remarks about where he was from, but they were playing a race card again. Okay, because he was from Argentina.
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of those Latin American
Yes.
countries, you know what I mean? And not just, to me, that just wasn't the place, but that's just, that's my opinion. I'm sure that my opinion is shared by millions, around the world. People have to stop playing a race card. This man, in my opinion, talked about, godliness and goodness and and being fair and everybody should be equal. We're all a member of the human family.
I was really glad to see him take up the position that we will that the pontiff will forgive people who have had abortions, because I think that there's a lot of guilt out there on men and women who have encouraged such an act, that if they had to do this over again, they would never have done that.
Well, there's millions of women out here, around the world that have had abortions for whatever reason, and I mentioned this before on our shows. In my opinion, it's a woman's choice. Okay,
It is.
to do this.
It is,
Right.
and at the same token, as it was said about forgiveness. See, one of the things that is helpful, especially from the standpoint of him saying what he said, a lot of times with women, particularly, it's a guilt and being able to forgive themselves, but then hearing it from someone else to say, "You are forgiven." If you read the Word, the Bible, it talks about forgiveness. And that's one of the hardest things that people struggle with, not just with abortion, but with anything. It's about, okay, someone has done something to me or hurt me in such a way. And, I'm angry and I'm not going to forgive them. Well, he's speaking from the spiritual standpoint, and he's speaking the tenets of what's in the Word, in the Bible. It's talking about those kinds of things, forgiveness. And so for him to say, "You are forgiven," then that helps that individual understand, if I can hear that from someone else, then I can accept that for myself. And I think that's huge.
And that was huge. That was
And
huge.
it makes
Exactly.
humanity better,
Of
Yes.
course.
because they're not
Of
wearing
course.
this cloak of guilt.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Because so many
Absolutely.
people deal with it in so many ways. And
Absolutely.
years of not being able to forgive yourself. You take on addictions. You take on so many things. And to hear somebody say that now you're forgiven and you just have to move on and move forward. And I like the fact that he was so humble, because they talked about the car that he rode in. They said it was very small. But I like that he didn't want to take the higher road and have like the fancy car, but he wanted you to be able to relate to him. And that's one of the things that we are missing right now, is that so many people come out and they say, as politicians will come out and say, I can relate to you, but you really can't relate to us. But he came out as high as position he has. He still came out and he was like, I don't want to be seen in that. What I want them to know is I can ride in this car and I can be comfortable in front of all these people. So he's trying to show us how to be comfortable in the skin we're in.
Absolutely.
And that's big.
Yes, that is.
I can't imagine the millions of women that have had abortions and then were, excluded, from the Catholic Church. And I'm glad to see that, that he has a different opinion. Okay, on that, because it's got to be traumatic.
And and I think that this is a common dialogue that makes common sense on the In My Opinion show, where we don't diverge on this. It's a human thing. It's a human thing to do. And many round table discussions, you would have both views spoken, and the views never converge anymore. But this is one at this table that converges, where we all agree that this was the proper thing to do, was to free women of the guilt of having had this.
And the men who may have encouraged it.
Yeah, and the men who may have encouraged it.
And judged it.
Yeah.
But the thing is this has troubled me too for a long time. In fact, years. is that maybe somebody on this panel could enlighten me that women are the largest vote bloc. Okay, how in the world have they let and allowed these congressmen to dictate, okay, what they can do with what they can do with their bodies? All right, these are men. Okay, how can they relate to a woman's body? You know what I mean? If you understand what I'm trying to say here, okay, to make a choice for you.
That's a good question, Ron, but I think you have to kind of go back historically, and I want to make sure that I have my facts correct, so if the panel will help me with this, but I understand that historically, women didn't always have the right to vote here in America. Right. We had, I think it was the 20th Amendment perhaps, that allowed us to have that voting right, okay? But as it relates to abortion, that whole issue, Roe versus Wade. That was one that came out in the 70s, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Okay, and so that was a very controversial issue at the time. But at that time, the time period that we were in a much better position because of organizations now and different groups like that were very vocal and went to their local officials, their state and national officials, and presented the other side. Because again, I mean, if you think about it historically, I mean, the women couldn't open up a checking account or have their own credit cards or anything like that without their husband's approval and that kind of thing. So things were moving on this continuum, but it took some time to get there. So in the meantime, you still had your staunch conservative white males who were in control, who decided these laws that were prohibitive for women, not just, just blanketly, they were just against women. And so now the pendulum appears to be kind of swinging again in that direction, because now you have the quote unquote religious groups, the evangelicals, if you will, who are, more or less a conservative group. And so again, it comes back to that condemnation and all of that negativity that you're seeing. And you don't see it as outwardly as it was, but it's still there. There's still that element. Okay, so there's the rub. I mean, that's what you're talking about. How can this be? Well, it is because of those factors that I described and maybe some others.
And then in addition to what Denise has said, there's also the historical piece. Our society was embodied with a culture that was pre-established long time ago. This was the role. There was no way out to do anything else until governments became more humane to people of gender and cultures and race and so on and so forth. And that was just the way things were. And now things have changed, and people have established, women have established their position in society to share in decision making about all of this. I won't say that they were all wrong, because back between 1600 and 2000, not 2000, 1900, there was a push in this country to born more children, to settle this great land that we had. And it was not uncommon for women to have 7 or 8 kids. You probably know that, right?
My aunt had 19.
Okay, but that was all part of a culture of the time. And now the times have changed, and it's time for women to assume their rightful responsibility.
Well, on that note, I hope that women will become a lot more aggressive, okay, and demand, that equality that they deserve. All right. I've always felt that way. All right, but we all know people that I'm the man, and and what I say goes. That's a bunch of bull.
I don't ever hear that no more. I'm sorry. I don't hear that no more.
I do. I mean, I hear it from my young people, and it's still prevalent. They still have the same push.
They met the right women.
And for the people that can't afford, there is all kinds of acts going forward on, again, the men that are making decisions for women to make sure that they can't have abortions. They're getting ready to reverse all the hard work that a lot of these groups went together to do because of their opinions.
Well, I'm a right to lifer, and I don't believe in abortions.
Okay, but let me know when you carry one.
But I don't intend to carry one.
Right.
I expect for my wife to carry it.
See, that's my point.
Yeah.
You know, men, they want to tell a woman, yeah, exactly, regulate what a woman can do.
Right.
That's
with her
not
body.
regulation,
See?
Ron.
Sure it
I'm
is.
sorry,
Yes, it
that's
is.
not
Sure it
regulation.
is, absolutely.
The three of you agree that that's regulation. But from my perspective, that is the role of the woman. That's what my mother did. That's what my wife did. That's what my daughter's doing.
Well, that's
She's
what I
having a
did, but I'm
child.
saying, but she's, I mean, I'm not.
But a choice to do it.
Yeah, choice.
Okay.
Oh, of course you got to have the choice to do it.
Yes.
No,
Okay, and
then
then-
rape is something that I'm adamantly against.
Right.
But you have to also understand that when you force people to do something they don't want to do, look at all these abused children. They're leaving them in the garbage cans. So you have to be careful when you have to look. You can't just look in front of you of the choice you're making. You got to look on down because some
But it
people.
was a choice they made to engage.
It doesn't
Not
matter.
necessarily.
It doesn't matter because we make choices today that hurt us later. But sometimes we could correct the choice that we made, and sometimes we can't. But what I'm saying is there is a high level of abuse of people that have children that they don't want.
Oh yes, there's no
And
doubt
so
about
when
that.
they're forced to have these kids, the children suffer at the hands, not the adults. The children suffer.
I
And I
agree.
don't think that's fair.
Just look at the news almost daily, all right?
Yes, absolutely.
Where the father has abused, you know, his children, or the mother's boyfriend,
Right.
all right, or the boyfriend's girlfriend, all right, has killed, you know, the child, and those are the
women,
things.
don't
those are
forget
the-
women abuse their children too.
Of course,
yeah.
Those are the things that have been reported. What about all of the horror that's going on as we do this show? All right, in Flint, Michigan. Look at all the horrors that are going on in this city and around the country and around the world. All right, and what pisses me off is that these politicians, they want to sit up there, you know, and play God and you know, and tell women to have these babies, okay, and who's going to take care of them? All right, who's going to take care of them? If a woman doesn't want a child, then more than likely she probably won't be the mother that child deserves. I mean, you know, deserves.
Right.
Okay, there's
I
going to be
agree.
some issues, all right? You know, and on that note, let's go to this Planned Parenthood controversy. Do we defend it or shut it down, or shut down the country, just because the Republicans and religious right say so? All women should have the right to make these choices. Planned Parenthood goes much further than abortions.
It sure does.
All right. There are millions of women that have been and continue to be served by Planned Parenthood. Is it really about Planned Parenthood, or is it about the diminishing population of the United States? The country needs workers that pay taxes. Let's not put women's issues under the bus. I think the powers that be that want to claim they're going to shut down the government, which that's not going to happen. All right, because Planned Parenthood is not going to. They're not going to defund Planned Parenthood by any stretch of the imagination.
Ron,
That's not going to happen.
Can we correct something?
Sure.
Okay. One, shutting down the government has nothing to do with Planned Parenthood.
Well, you better tell your
That's
Republican
the
friends.
plan.
Hang on. It has nothing to do with that's a ploy. Shutting down the government, it means that January 1st, we will be, our chambers will be empty, and we can't function. You won't get your Social Security. None of that stuff will work because the United States doesn't work off of a deficit.
How many times have we been down that
No,
road?
no, Ron. Every year in October, and it'll happen next year at the same time, the president will go before the Congress and say we need to raise the debt ceiling. And we'll raise the debt ceiling. Guess what? That allows us to borrow more money. And we continue to spend. and we put our children at risk while we completely exhaust the treasury of the United States. What happens when we can no longer pay our bills? Who's going to suffer? Going to people who have not managed their monies, or the government? That's up to the people in Washington to do that. And us, like sitting around this table, encourage people to do more spending and less control spending. We need to stop spending so much. We need to cut back some.
Well, I agree with I agree with that. Okay, but don't put the blame on.
But it's not Planned Parenthood.
Don't put the blame on now. Don't put the blame on President Obama.
Right.
All right.
Every
Look at
government-
Bush. Every president that's ever
Every
been
president
there.
gets
That's
that.
right.
Every
Every
president.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I want to hear what
Last
you
word.
say.
No, well, I was going to say this is a conversation I think we're going to have to pick up on because
Yeah.
this is very interesting, and I
Yes.
do have to weigh in on it.
Yes.
this has been a wonderful conversation. I hope our millions of viewers worldwide enjoyed it. Tune into RBR IMO on the internet and look at and view all of our shows. I think you'll be amazed. Until next time, this is Ronald Berry Robinson and friends saying, stay focused.